Okay, hi everyone, and welcome to the SwiftCase Productivity Podcast with me, Adam Sykes, the founder of SwiftCase, the professional productivity platform.
And I'm Craig McCarthy, development manager at SwiftCase, based in our Baltic Triangle office in Liverpool.
Hi, I'm Phil, a developer also in the Baltic Triangle office.
Okay, great. So today we were going to have a little talk about some of the basics, I suppose, is the best way to put it. So people ask us about what we do, and we tell them we make a software as a service product, and it's based in the cloud, and all these buzzwords that people hear, and like they want to know that do they need this for their business? You know, maybe they're just working on a piece of paper at the moment, or you know, they've got a spreadsheet, an old Excel spreadsheet, or something like that, like Lotus Notes, you know, back in the day. You know, step back in time, but you know, what are some of these basic concepts? And you know, when we talk about things like these systems, what can people access? You know, is it going to cost them loads? Are there simple steps that they can take? I suppose that's what we really thought. We put together something that helps people take the first step.
Yeah.
So should we kick off with who wants to explain what the cloud is?
I mean, it makes me laugh, this one, because I think it is really straightforward. I mean, the cloud ultimately is just the internet, isn't it? Really.
Yeah.
And cloud-based software is just software that's stored on the internet. So the data is stored online, and the software itself is online. And it's not something that you download directly, because in the past a lot of companies used to have maybe bespoke software or this. What I imagine in my head now is that horrible Windows 98 window where it's all grey and everything. But you'd download that and you'd run it on your machine, or maybe on a network in your office.
You have to install it on every machine.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas this is something that's just accessible usually from browsers or through an app, and it's just great. It's all stored online, isn't it?
So it's like you're renting or outsourcing your hard drive to an external company that doesn't just give you like a hard drive space, but probably backs it up and makes it redundant for failure and things like that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, which then protects you from things like if you have a fire in your office and the building burns down, well then that's it. In the old days, that was it. Your hard drive's there, that's it. You're gone, your business is gone effectively. That's not the case now. Even if one of Google's data centers goes down with your data on it, because there are multiple layers of redundancy.
I think that's the big thing as well. It tends to be stored on multiple machines rather than your one machine.
Exactly.
Yeah, so to put it basically, there's lots of computers exactly the same as your computer, just a bit bigger, more powerful, and they're spread all around the planet. And you can access your files and put your files onto these computers. So when we're talking about redundancy, all that really means is rather than you've got one computer and if it breaks, it's gone. There's lots and lots of computers that have all got copies of your information. That if one goes down, you can access the other one,
and it makes it incredibly easy for risk assessment, doesn't it? Because ultimately you're putting your faith into like a hosting company or the service itself, and they tend to that's their entire business really, is hosting.
So people have concerns like, oh, my data's going into the cloud. Am I going to be in control of it?
Where the hell is this?
Where's it gone? But it is on a computer, and certainly you can ask it for it to be put into certain geographic locations. So if your business is only allowed to hold data in the UK or inside the EU at the moment, or there might be restrictions like that you have to, and you can do that. You can say, I only want it to be in a data center in the UK. I only want it to be on a computer inside the EU boundary to comply with law, and that can be done. And I suppose the other point is that these companies that host this, when you're picking one, you want to look for one that's does its security testing, it has certification about whether it's been tested by is it up to date, can it be hacked? Your data's probably more secure, if you like, in these cloud systems than on your system, especially if you're a small business that don't have all these certificates, don't do all this testing to see whether your systems are secure. Actually putting it in the cloud is not less secure, it's more secure.
I feel like it's one less thing to worry about, isn't it, really, when it comes to data, especially since we kind of live in this environment now where data security is such an important issue.
Yeah.
So definitely.
Yeah,
definitely
and
you're
not having to pay for upgrades.
Exactly.
They're upgrading all the hardware all the time. You're not going to buy a new computer every 2 minutes. A lot of these you can access on your phone. Or iPad or the tablet. So it saves you a lot on actually investing on your own infrastructure, your own technology hardware, I suppose, as well. Okay, so that's the cloud. So happy with the cloud. I suppose the next one is we always talk about is software as a service. So does anyone want to go for software as a service? Then?
I mean, software as a service, it's basic explanation really is you're paying for a piece of software, the use of a piece of software, like Phil said, renting it almost.
Yeah.
On a contractual basis. You just got access to it. It's this subscription model that an awful lot of platforms are moving towards, and businesses are starting to adopt it quite often now as well. Like if you think about the likes of Spotify, Netflix, they're all subscription services that you pay for on a monthly basis, and you get this service. And it's what we do at the minute with SwiftCase, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, so it allows people to be flexible, doesn't it? Because although you say it's a contract, it might be, depending on what, it might be a monthly contract.
Yeah.
You only need to commit to software for a month or 12 months. You're not buying a piece of software that's costing you, tens of thousands of pounds or, even thousands of pounds. For a small business, that's a big outlay. It might be just £30 a month. It might be £5 a month. If you don't like it, what's the worst thing that happens? You spend £5.
I suppose in the past, you used to, as a business, you tend to find a development team or developer, and you'd commission this large bespoke system for your organisation. And I suppose the nightmare behind that is ultimately they've got to support it. You'll be paying for the support of that system. Whereas software as a service,
it's all rolled in, isn't it?
Exactly.
It's like when you made it bespoke, the service you provided after that was the maintenance of that. Now you always maintain software; always needs to be maintained afterwards. It was probably this old model where you go, here we go, it's finished. It'll do everything you want to do, and that's it forever. But of course, as we've seen, workflows and ways of working will change within probably a day. So you need to make changes, and if you're not a developer yourself, you're not going to be able to make those changes to this £10,000 app.
No,
that you've got.
Especially if it's not a flexible product where you build your own.
Exactly.
It's not got a way that you can visually make things. It's you need to be a tech genius to just even change the colour of a button or something. It is that's an issue, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I think moving from one of these systems to another as well tends to be quite straightforward nowadays, because as a user of these systems, you have access to your data. So if you needed an extract of it, that's your right. So I think that's another good advantage, really.
Yeah. So definitely, I suppose, as well as moving between systems, when you've finished, if you like, or you want to change, there's also the ongoing integration. So a lot of software as a service, a lot of cloud-based software can talk to other pieces of software. So you might have something where you make an invoice, and that can talk to the thing that you actually did your job on. So when you did your work, it created an invoice automatically. It might talk to your marketing system that's hooked up to a CRM and send out marketing emails.
Things like that.
You've got things like MailChimp, Dropbox. All these things connect to each other and make your life easier, because you've not got to be, doing everything separately. You've not got to, be logging into different systems and entering data multiple times. You just do it once and it's all connected up.
Exactly. I suppose if you think about it like a use case almost of Dropbox, if you have your own little system and you wanted, you've got a spreadsheet, you've got your system, you've got Dropbox, and it's got all the job details in a file on Dropbox, and then maybe that's got a reference on it or something, but then you have to cross-reference that with your spreadsheet, and then you have to input that onto your system. Imagine if that was all just one process. And that tends to be the way it goes. Rather than having to do 3 different things, you can just do it all on one system. that talks to each other.
I think the other thing as well is if you have got, like, say you're not using anything like that, you are just on your own system. Maybe you've got a network, because lots of businesses might have an internal network where they can store files on a main hard drive and everyone can access that. And you can, if you start getting server software, you start putting security aspects around who can access which file and so on. But a lot of very small businesses probably just drop everything in a folder that's shared, and everyone can access it. And there's not really any of that role-based access, so you can't say that only managers can access that.
Well, exactly.
Access that.
I mean, I suppose one of the nightmares is if they've got financial information that maybe they don't want everyone to see.
Patient information,
exactly. So it's definitely one of the bigger advantages, I think.
I suppose when you get into something like that, you've got the new GDPR regulations. Well, say new, they've been around a fair while now, but businesses aren't all up to date with that, and having a shared drive with everything on where everyone can access it, you're not compliant. So having these systems that are continually evolving and updating rather than a one-off thing you've downloaded, it's up to date with all these regulations. It has to be, because that's part of the ongoing maintenance is keeping up to date. I
think just to go back to integration, one of the cool things that happens, and again relates to role-based access, I suppose, is the logins. So now a lot of the times you can sign into these services with maybe your Google account, like your LinkedIn, and Facebook, Twitter, that sort of thing. And I think that's really cool, because it gets away from that idea of, oh God, I can't remember my password for this particular system.
It gets rid of that security issue when you go, I'll just use that blanket password I use.
Exactly. So if for whatever reason someone finds out the password for one thing,
you're compromised, aren't you?
Exactly. So I think that's quite good.
Yeah, and I think one thing you touched on before was the fact that you can access it from different web browsers or devices. So you can also, the important point of that is you can access it wherever you are. So you don't need to be in the office. You can be at the beach.
Exactly.
You can be on your phone looking at what jobs you've got for the next.
So it's been one of my
doing stuff.
One of my favourite stories with one of our customers was that, I think we've mentioned it before. Where he said he's had his first holiday for about 10 years. All because of our system. But it was amazing, really, because that's the power of cloud-based software.
You can always have access, can't you? You've always got access to information. You can always be checking things if you want to check things. It's all there in front of you.
And on the other hand as well, we've dealt with customers in the past where you tend to be able to have the ability to limit where you can access it from as well. So if you do have really sensitive information, and obviously you don't want anyone to be able to access the login screen or the system at all outside of their own offices, you also have that capability a lot of the time as well.
I think I suppose that's one thing that's come out of our discussion today.
Flexibility.
Is, as well as the flexibility is this myth that somehow cloud is going to be more insecure because it's not in your office. That's not the case. You've only got to look at like what we were talking about a couple of episodes ago about when the NHS had the issue with the hack.
They were lucky because
that wasn't cloud-based. That was software that was on their systems that they hadn't updated.
Exactly.
Because the responsibility was then to update. Whereas when you look at cloud, the responsibility is on your provider to keep it updated.
Well, actually, after the Apple iCloud hack and the celebrity one a few years ago, they've now obviously learned from that, and that you can't actually log in on any new device unless you've got a device with you to validate. So that's two-factor authentication. Without you having to give anyone send extra details. It's just sort of built in. So obviously they learn, and then once they've had that one incident or whatever, that feedback means that, well, hopefully it'll never happen again. But still, if you leave it to people in the NHS, some will dig. Someone will be diligent. Someone's always going to be too rushed or lazy.
We're not picking on the NHS. We're like small business. You might not actually have any staff who are if you're that small, you might not have someone who's your specialist IT guy. It might be you who does the. You might be like, say you're a plumber. You go and do plumbing yourself, and you've got a few people who help you. You don't really want to be handling IT and updates and have you got security updates and what do you need to be doing, have you got track of all your devices, whereas this kind of, like you were saying before, it frees you up from all that. You can offload the responsibility to someone else, where you've got a strong contract in place, or you're secure, they've hit all these various certification or security requirements, and you're safe in the knowledge that that's being handled. I think that's one of the key benefits. Okay, great. So hopefully we've given people a bit of insight into what cloud software is, what software as a service is, and some of the key ways it fits with a small business. So thanks everyone for listening to the SwiftCase Productivity Podcast. Hope to catch you next time.
And if you want to know more about cloud software or any of the topics we'll be tackling in the future, then be sure to subscribe or follow us on social media at SwiftCase UK on Twitter. We've got Adam Sykes, Craig McCarthy and Phil Whitby on LinkedIn. You can find us all there, and check out our website, swiftcase.co.uk.
Yeah, and if you agree or disagree, or you think you've got more to contribute, then leave a comment below.
Leave a comment, we'll get back in touch with you. Great, okay, hopefully see you next time.
Bye now.
Thanks, bye.